Brothers and sisters, what if I was to tell you that Joseph Smith didn't just use the Urim and Thummim to translate the Book of Mormon, but there's evidence, there's information that he used it for other things, to see other things, things that you know about already. Let's get into this. Okay, folks, welcome back to the channel. I have Christian, I almost want to call you Christian Homestead. I have Christian Zebarth here, Seismabarth. That's what my wife and I were calling you the other day, Seismabarth. But and then you're funny because you run with it.
Well, yeah, it's funny, and I think you're getting it from my username, which is my first initial and middle initial, and then my last name. But when people see that without knowing it, they might be like, what is CMZ? How are you supposed to say that? But it's CMZ Barth, Christian Michael Zebarth.
That's
and
right.
Now you're making me want some Swedish fish.
Swedish fish, and these are the blue ones. I didn't think I would like them, but they have a very raspberry lemonade taste, and they're delicious.
Sometime.
Sure.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the fish.
So let me bring this up. All right, let me go to some email. This is interesting. I have never heard of this before. So go ahead.
So I think I read it in the early 90s in, I know I read it in a book called God, Man, and the Universe, which was written by Hiram L. Andrus, who was a BYU religion professor. He did a lot of research into Joseph Smith's thought, and he was able to kind of dig up a lot of quotes about Joseph Smith that weren't really readily available to much of anybody unless they went to the church historians library and did a lot of, sifting through books and reading old historical books. But he found this quote that it says it's related by Lorenzo Brown. It's in the Joseph Smith Jr. papers. That was something different back then. There's now the Joseph Smith papers thing, the big project. This quote could be in there. I don't know. If it isn't, it probably should be, but this did come from the Church Historians Library. It's just not a very well-known quote, but it is a very important one, and it's a very intriguing one, and it ties in. It makes me think of some of the discussions you've had with Jonathan Neville, talking about
right.
how it was the Urim and Thummim being used. Do you want me to go into reading this?
Yes.
So Joseph Smith here says, after I got through translating the Book of Mormon, I took up the Bible to read with the Urim and Thummim. So he's not saying it outright, but it sounds like after I translated the Book of Mormon with the Urim and Thummim, I took up to read the Bible with the Urim and Thummim. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah. That's exactly what it sounds like he's saying.
Yeah. So then we get into the even more intriguing part. I read the first chapter of Genesis, and I saw the things as they were done. I turned over the next chapter, and the whole passed before me like a grand panorama, and so on, chapter after chapter, until I read the whole of it. He actually went through the entire Bible with the Urim and Thummim, which helped him to see the events as they happened. How would you like to have that experience with the Bible?
Yeah, well, and I've heard that before, and I'm wondering why some of the people that like to run with the seer stone thing, which I noticed recently, Jonathan Neville, like I thought they discredited the seer stones, period. But as I've read and studied more about the seer stones, there were 3 of them. There was a white one and a chocolate covered one that looked like a baby's foot or something. And chocolate covered. I mean, a chocolate colored, not chocolate covered, but, but, that he did use those seer stones, and even those who believe that he used the Urim and Thummim only for translation know that he had other stones for as a seer.
Yeah.
However, this is interesting. I don't know why some of do you know if some of the seer stone scholars quote this?
I have never heard anybody quote it anywhere. I only know about it from me reading this book.
This is amazing. So I want to start over with this because it's like, you know how you don't, when you eat a really good piece of chocolate, speaking of chocolate, or anything savory or sweet, you don't want to do it fast. You want to do it slow. And this right here is sweet and savory. I want to start at the beginning. After I got through translating the Book of Mormon, I took up the Bible to read with the Urim and Thummim. Wow. And maybe that's how he did the translations. And we don't know.
We provide some insight here.
Maybe the Joseph Smith translation of the of the New Testament.
Oh, he did a lot of stuff in the New Testament. The Book of Revelation got a decent amount of editing through his translation.
Right.
The Gospels did.
So the interesting thing about it is that we don't know. Like if you listen to Royal Skousen and others, we don't know exactly what am I trying to say? The complete process, even with the Urim and Thummim, like we don't know if everything was just completely given to him and spelled out. We know that he had the Holy Ghost to translate.
And
otherwise, he couldn't
learn the process. The process didn't come to him all at once, but he did get to where he was kind of gliding through it more easily than at first.
And things would not appear to him if he was not following the Spirit, and if he was not. Like if he was upset with Emma,
out his translating instrument, and he goes, "All is as dark as Egypt."
Yeah, that wasn't the Urim and Thummim though. That was a seer stone, and we don't know if that really happened.
Yeah,
that's hearsay. That's actually a third-hand account.
There you go. Yeah.
But we don't. I think Martin Harris said we don't know if Martin Harris actually said that. We know that somebody else said that he said that. But he could have said it. I don't know.
Well, the point for our discussion here is that he had to have the right instrument and he had to have the Spirit with him and his developed capacity to translate.
Right. Exactly. So let me read some more. I read the first chapter of Genesis and I saw the things as they were done. I turned over the next and the whole. Now, this is starting to sound familiar to me. I think that I have read this before. Okay. And the whole passed before me like a grand panorama. Now, I've heard others speak of a panoramic view. Angels would show him things. He saw the future, the past, the present. He saw the kingdom of God on earth. He saw the millennium.
Vision like Enoch had, like Moses had. Yeah.
Exactly. And so so go ahead. This is kind of where we left off. You want to continue to read?
And so on, chapter after chapter, until I read the whole of it. It sounds like he's saying he went through the whole Bible in this fashion, which would take quite a while, and he would see quite a bit. But that, I think, was part of his prophetic capability and calling as the head of the last dispensation to have this familiarity with the Bible.
Right. Absolutely.
And we know that he had read it before that, 10 years earlier, roughly 10 years earlier, he reads James 1:5. So he's reading the New Testament, earlier. Now he's seeing it in vision, seeing the events as they occurred. So just imagine him seeing Noah building the ark, seeing the Red Sea parting, different things like that, seeing Elijah in his contest with the priests of Baal, and how the Lord accepted Elijah's sacrifice, but not theirs. And what happened after that? All these things.
Go ahead and read some more.
I saw it all. Then I think of the sectarian priests boasting of what they know. Why, I have forgotten 1,000 times more than they know.
Oh, what do you think he means by that last point? Why I have forgotten 1,000 times more than they know. He's basically
They're going off of their reading of it. He's going off of having seen all of it.
right, right. These sectarian priests, and you know what? He wasn't boasting. He was basically at awe himself. That's one thing I love about. We gain a testimony by the Spirit, but it's neat to know that, for instance, I broke it down to Andrea the other day. We were talking about the Book of Mormon. How often did you ever hear Joseph quote the Book of Mormon?
Not a lot. There's a little bit of reference to it in the lectures on faith, but he really quoted the Bible a lot.
And that was proof that it didn't belong to him. When you write if he had written a masterpiece like that, he would be owning it constantly, talking about it. If that came from him. But imagine you're a prophet and
the Doctrine and Covenants.
It was just as strange to him as it was to the new members of the church, as it was to Brigham Young, as it was to Oliver Cowdery and Martin Harris. This was not a manuscript that was conjured up by these men. This was gathered. Right. This was translated by plates, so it didn't belong to him. And Royal Skousen talks a lot about that.
Well, with the Doctrine and Covenants as well, I think we can do a separate video on how he received revelations that went into the Doctrine and Covenants, and he didn't totally forget them. But there's in some ways, just like you're saying with the Book of Mormon, he didn't. I don't know how to word it just right. It's kind of like he didn't internalize it as fully as you think he might have done, but it might be better to say, like you're saying, it was kind of separate from him. It wasn't his mindset. And a lot of the revelations are kind of rebuking him,
Yeah, right. Why would you rebuke yourself? Unless you're just trying to appear as a really good, that you got to be believable, right? God is rebuking me and he's rebuking you too. No, but yeah. So if you think about it, think about oh goodness. Let's say it's like somebody gives you a book and says that you need to copy down everything out of this book. And then you're if you're not the author of that book, you're not going to discuss it. You don't know much about, like, he kind of had to study the Book of Mormon, probably even more after he translated it. Yep. Okay. Thank you. So is there anything else?
So all of this makes me think about how when he's having this experience, it's very, very likely that he's seeing things in these events that didn't end up in the writing of them. Further insight into the Bible beyond what we see when we look at the writing in the Bible.
Right.
So I think he, could have seen something like the incident where Stephen got stoned, and Stephen looked up into the heavens and saw the Son of Man standing on the right hand of God. Well, when he saw that with the Urim and Thummim, when he was on that page of the Bible, he would have seen God the Father and Jesus Christ as two separate beings there that Stephen was witnessing.
That's true.
That's one example.
That's very true. Thank you so much, Christian, and go get yourself some Swedish fish on me.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.